Hey there, this is your teacher, Mr. H.
I'm Paris, class of 2022, today's student host.
And you're watching History in a Hoodie.
This episode will be about Jimmy Carter, where we will learn all about Georgia's first U.S. president. I can't wait to find out.
Well then, let's get this show started.
What are we learning about today?
The standard for today's lesson asks students to describe the role of Jimmy Carter in Georgia as state senator, governor, president, and past president.
Before we start, let's go over some vocabulary for today's lesson. Nobel Peace Prize is an award given out annually to recognize the person who has done the best work for the promotion of peace and prosperity between all nations. Consolidation means to combine several parts into a more effective whole. Camp of David Peace Accord were the peace treaty between Middle East, neighboring Israel and Egypt, brokered by Carter. SALT II was the second nuclear arms deal between the U.S. and Soviet Russia to reduce stockpiles of nuclear weapons of the two powers during the Cold War. Inflation is an economic term which describes an increase of prices and a decrease of purchase value of money. Habitat for Humanity is a non-profit volunteer organization that builds affordable housing for low-income families.
James Earl Jimmy Carter Jr. was born in the small town of Plains in southwest Georgia. He was raised by a peanut farmer and merchant, attended Georgia Southwestern University and Georgia Tech before receiving an appointment to the U.S. Naval Academy in Annapolis, Maryland. During his naval days, he served as an officer on a nuclear submarine, the Seawolf, and made a reputation as an officer on a relentless quest for excellence. While taking care of his family's peanut farm and business following his father's death, Carter became interested and involved in local leadership positions, eventually running for and winning a seat on the state legislature. During the 1960s, when Carter was running for state senate, many of the Georgia government positions were won through a political boss, similar to the mob, who had control of the money and votes in the district. Going against the flow, Carter railed against this corrupt system of electoral control and won his state senate seat fairly, and eventually saw that the corruption in the Georgia system would be abolished. During his terms as state senator, and later on as Georgia's governor, one of Carter's main focuses was on improving education. Though he didn't believe in desegregation in his younger years, Carter came to recognize that there would be greater educational opportunities for all Georgian students if local schools, white and black, would merge together. Though his hometown of Plains did not support this plan while he was on their school board, he continued to advocate for these policies as chairman of the Senate Education Committee and as governor. As governor, Carter developed a reputation for efficiency in the system. He reorganized the state government and consolidated state agencies to make sure everyone doing the same job was in the same building. He was stirring several different pots as governor. He fought for equal rights and acceptance for all races and genders. He reformed the state court system. He initiated mental health programs, all in addition to his educational progress. Carter was focused on fairness and justice, which is evident by his staff, to which he appointed more women and minorities than all previous governors combined. Jimmy Carter ran for and won the Democratic nomination for president for the 1976 election and defeated President Gerald Ford in the general election. While Ford was tainted with President Nixon's scandals, Carter came across to the electorate as an honest man with democratic principles. Carter's one term as president is often considered questionable by historians. He had some successes and some failures. During the 1970s, the U.S. was still involved in the Cold War with Soviet Russia, becoming more concerned about the Middle East region, and recovering from a presidential resignation and the resulting distrust in the presidency from only a few years earlier. Some of Carter's successes include the creation of the Federal Department of Energy, which deals with issues related to oil and power production, and the Department of Education, which ensures all American students receive a high-quality education no matter where they live. He addressed environmental concerns by doubling the total size of national parks and wildlife refuges across the nation, and he hired, again, a record number of women and minorities to work in federal jobs. Carter's two biggest successes, however, were international issues, not domestic. He helped to negotiate the Camp David peace treaty between Egypt and Israel, ending the decades-long bitter conflict and wars between the Arab and Jewish neighbors, resolving one of the conflicts of the Middle East region. He also signed the SALT II nuclear arms deal with the Soviet Union to limit nuclear weapons in the world and begin to ease the tensions of the Cold War. Carter struggled with managing the nation's economy during his term, though, facing a major inflation problem and a gas shortage due to conflict with OPEC nations. A hostage crisis in Iran and the Soviet Union's invasion of Afghanistan would lose him public credibility as a leader who could handle international incidents with strength. While Carter's presidency was a mixed bag, no one can doubt the impact Jimmy Carter has had on the world after his term as president concluded. Carter returned to Georgia following his failed re-election bid and opened the Carter Center in Atlanta. The center is engaged in national and international issues to advance human rights, promote democratic practices, and resolve conflicts. In the past 4 decades, the Carter Center has monitored and supported more than 100 elections in dozens of countries in Central and South America to ensure the voice of the people would truly be heard. It has also worked to resolve conflicts in countries like Haiti, Bosnia, North Korea, and Sudan. Carter visited Cuba under Fidel Castro's regime and delivered a live and uncensored speech on Cuban TV and radio about free trade and democracy. His programs may result soon in being the first to eliminate a debilitating disease worldwide, guinea worm, since polio was eliminated decades ago. Additionally, Carter has led the Habitat for Humanity program that helps build adequate housing for poor families, he and his family frequently pitching in with the construction, even though he is presently in his 90s. In 2002, Jimmy Carter was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for his efforts to find solutions to conflicts and advancing democracy and human rights, making him only the second native Georgian to ever win the award. The other, Martin Luther King Jr.
So what? How did Carter's political career advance Georgia?
When Jimmy Carter was first elected to state senate in 1962, it was only 7 years removed from Georgia's Sibley Commission, where state leaders and citizens decided that integration was such a terrible plan that closing schools was the better answer. The governor at the time was quoted famously as saying, "No, not one black student would integrate a Georgia school under his administration." Carter may have been uneasy at the time about integration. However, as governor, he positioned himself as a reformer and called for an end to segregation in the state. While the winds of change took time in Georgia and continued well beyond his time as a state politician, he paved the way forward. The 1960s were some of the earliest days of the women's liberation movement, as many women decided to end their tenure as a stay-at-home wife and sought employment in the workforce. Continuing his reputation of taking action to be an example, Carter's hiring of women and minorities to state and federal positions demonstrated to the community the benefit of growing workforce and inclusion of all people in it. As a politician, somewhat surprisingly for a politician, Carter's major achievement in state politics was to eliminate waste in the government. The state's outdated system included over 300 state agencies that Carter was to channel into about 25. Being smart about organization and budgetary concerns helped set up Georgia for economic prosperity in the near future, leading to the immense growth of the jewel of the South, our capital, Atlanta, and all the boons our state was able to achieve since the 70s, like pro sports, international trade and transportation, movie production, and industrial growth.
Now what? What am I going to do with this information?
Jimmy Carter may not make many top 10 lists of best presidents, but he is probably the best human being to ever become U.S. president. Everything he has done since his presidency ended, building affordable housing, eradicating diseases, ending conflicts, promoting democracy, demonstrates his greatness as a person. The reality of being president and of politics is that the job requires a certain amount of shrewdness and underhandedness to do it well, which Carter was not. As Georgia's only president thus far, I would rather he had been a weak president and a great man than the other way around. I feel proud of Georgia's great citizen every time I see him sitting at the Braves Stadium cheering on the team with his wife Rosalind. or watch him on the news hammering in nails at a Habitat home. We need more great examples to model our lives by before we need more politicians. Carter is an amazing role model. He walks the walk and talks the talk. He says he wants to fight for human rights and then travels the world fighting for human rights. He says he wants to promote democracy and then visits faraway places and protects the people's right to vote. There's no negotiation or nuance of his principles, straightforward and clear. That's what we should all look for when we seek out a role model, and we should all be seeking out role models. What person makes us want to be a better version of ourselves based on their example? Probably not Kanye or a Kardashian. Who makes us want to make the best use of the hours of our day? Hopefully not the pregnant teen reality shows. The pop culture narrative tries to provide so many false idols whose example brings us down. Do seek out role models, but make sure that they are modeling good.
Wow, so learning about President Carter is really important for me to understand. I'm glad I learned it today.
Right you are. Are you ready for some review questions?
Yep. Jimmy Carter was governor in Georgia. What success was he best known for? As President of the United States, Jimmy Carter is best remembered for which of the following was not a problem during Jimmy Carter's presidency? Jimmy Carter and Martin Luther King Jr. both share the achievement of which action is Jimmy Carter known for post-presidency?
Thank you, Paris, for co-hosting with me today. I hope all the rest of you learned a lot from today's episode of History in a Hoodie about Jimmy Carter. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Just kidding, I don't care about that stuff. But do make sure you study this lesson. Bye now.
Bye now.